The weirdest amphibious vehicles of World War II. What if I told you that during World War II, armies didn't just fight on land, sea, and air, but sometimes all three at once with the same vehicle? Today, we're diving into some of the strangest, most ambitious, and downright weird amphibious vehicles of World War II. Tanks that could swim, trucks that became boats, and machines that looked like they came straight out of a mad engineer's notebook. Some worked surprisingly well. Others, not so much. Let's get into it. 1. German Landwasserschlep. We're starting with something that looks less like a vehicle and more like a floating tractor. The German Landwasserschlep was originally designed as a recovery and transport vehicle for amphibious landings. It could crawl onto beaches, haul heavy equipment, then slowly chug back into the water like nothing happened. With its boat-shaped hull and tracked running gear, it was more amphibious barge than tank. It wasn't fast, it wasn't armed, and it definitely wasn't glamorous, but it was incredibly useful during operations like the planned invasion of Britain and later in river crossings. Weird? Absolutely. Effective? Surprisingly, yes. 2. British Dukw Dukw. Despite sounding British, the Dukw was actually American designed, but it became legendary with British and Allied forces. Nicknamed the Duck, this was a six-wheel drive truck that could drive straight into water and keep going. No transformation needed. It carried troops, supplies, and even artillery from ships directly onto beaches. From Normandy to the Pacific, the Dukw proved that sometimes the simplest idea is the most revolutionary. It might not look strange today, but back then, a floating truck was mind-blowing. 3. German Schwimmwagen Jeep. Germany took one look at the Jeep and thought, let's make it swim. The Schwimmwagen was a small, lightweight amphibious car with a fold-down propeller at the rear. On land, it handled like a compact military vehicle. In water, it became a tiny boat. It was stealthy, agile, and perfect for reconnaissance units operating near rivers and swamps. Soldiers could literally drive into a river, cross it, and drive out the other side. A Jeep that turns into a boat will never not be weird. 4. LVT Landing Vehicle Tract. UNC. Now we're getting serious. The LVT, or Landing Vehicle Tract, was basically a floating, tank-like transport built for beach assaults. It played a massive role in the Pacific Theater, where islands and coral reefs made normal landings nearly impossible. These vehicles could plow through water, climb onto beaches, and deliver troops under fire. Some versions were even armed with cannons and machine guns. They weren't pretty, but they were absolute workhorses, and without them, many amphibious assaults would have failed. 5. Soviet T-37, a light amphibious tank. Yes, the Soviets made a swimming tank, and yes, it looks exactly as fragile as you imagine. The T-37A was a tiny amphibious tank meant for reconnaissance and river crossings. It floated using its hull and moved through water with a rear-mounted propeller. While innovative, it had thin armor and weak firepower, making it extremely vulnerable in real combat. Many were lost early in the war. Still, the idea of a tank bobbing across a river under fire is equal parts impressive and terrifying. 6. Tours. Japanese Type 3, Kachi Amphibious Tank. Japan took amphibious tanks to another level. The Type 3 Kachi was designed specifically for naval landings. It had massive detachable pontoons that turned it into a legitimate sea-going vessel. Once it reached land, the pontoons could be released, and the tank would fight normally. It was one of the largest amphibious tanks ever built in World War II, but it arrived too late and in too few numbers to make a difference. Still, a tank with removable boat sections is about as weird as military engineering gets. 7. American Amphibious Sherman Tanks. The Sherman tank was everywhere, and yes, it also learned how to swim. Using a system called Duplex drive, Shermans were fitted with collapsible flotation skirts and propellers. Before landing, the tank would inflate its canvas screen, float off the landing craft, and motor toward the beach. This worked, sometimes. In rough seas, many Shermans sank before reaching shore, especially during D-Day. When it worked, it was brilliant. When it didn't, it was catastrophic. A floating Sherman is both genius and nightmare fuel. 8. Italian L-333 and L-335 amphibious tankettes. Italy experimented with some of the smallest and strangest amphibious armored vehicles of the war. The L-333 and L-335 were tiny tankettes designed to float using pontoons or specialized hull shapes. They were lightly armed, lightly armored, and heavily limited. While they never saw major success, they show how even smaller nations were trying to solve the amphibious warfare problem, sometimes with questionable results. They looked more like armored bathtubs than tanks. World War II forced engineers to break every rule of vehicle design. Tanks became boats, trucks became ships, and sometimes those wild ideas actually worked. These amphibious vehicles may look strange today, but they helped shape modern amphibious warfare and proved that desperation and innovation often go hand in hand. If you enjoyed this deep dive into military weirdness, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which vehicle you think was the strangest of them all. Thanks for watching.